So we make it back to the mountain, Mount Sinai, the place where Moses originally met with God. And it would be here that the Israelites will set up camp for the evening. And Moses told the people to prepare themselves and purify themselves, because God will come down upon the mountain and meet with them. And that next morning, just before sunrise, the earth began to shake. There were clashes of thunder and lightning, and smoke and fire engulfed the mountain. The people gathered at the foot of the mountain, and God shouted down and called Moses up in front of all of them. And then God began to speak out what we now call the Ten Commandments. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make idols. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Honor your father and your mother. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, and you shall not covet. So the whole place was filled with God's presence. And right after God's finished speaking his 10 commandments, the people cried out to Moses, saying, Moses, Moses, please, you speak to God on our behalf, and you speak on God's behalf, and we will listen to you. Don't let God speak to us directly. We are afraid we're going to die. From that point on, God spoke through Moses. And while on the mountain, God gave Moses the law on stone tablets by which the people were to live by, as well as instructions for the tabernacle, which is the tent where God would dwell, the priest, and the Sabbath. God would form a covenant that if Israel were to have no other God and live by his instructions, they would be a sacred nation, a holy people, his representatives to the entire world. It would not be too long after that Israel would break the new covenant. Moses was on the mountain for some time, and the people started to get a little impatient. So they would force his brother Aaron to make them an idol, a statue in which to worship. And Aaron took all the gold from the camp of Israel and formed that into a golden calf. And the people gathered around and they say, "This is our God that brought us out of the land of Egypt." And they held a festival in celebration in worship to the golden calf. God told Moses what was going on and to go back to the camp. When Moses saw what was happening, he was filled with anger, threw down the stone tablets. They shattered on the ground. "Take that calf and burn it in fire. Gather the ashes, mix it in water, and have all the camp of Israel drink it. Now, if you are on the Lord's side, come with me. Strap a sword to your hip, and I want you to go throughout the camp and kill all those who came against the Lord." About 3,000 people were executed that evening, and Moses went to God to make an appeal not to wipe out the nation, but to remember the promise he made to Abraham. So a sacrificial system was put in place to cover the people's sin. A priestly order was instituted, and the tabernacle was constructed. Israel would spend some time at the base of Sinai learning how to live and worship the God of their fathers, who was now living in their midst. And this concludes the book of Exodus.